My guest on this episode of Three Food Memories embodies the lavish flair and impulsive spirit of Alice in Wonderland's Queen of Hearts, but with a heart that's far kinder and an infinitely more generous. A part-time alchemist and full-time instigator of conversation that makes polite society sweat, she's the artwork's favourite mischief maker. For our guest, controversy isn't a crisis, it's a medium, a tool to crack open big thinking. Big thinking for the world of tomorrow, a world she won't be in, but one she's intent on shaping. She may be a US import, but she's firmly planted herself in Australian soil and has been making waves, clothing optional, ever since landing in Tasmania and claiming her place as the First Lady of Mona. Kirsha, KAECHELE, big thanks for inviting me to record with you here in your royal court at the Museum of Old and New, Hobart, Tasmania.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's so nice to be with you. You're just such a sweetheart.
Space. Now tell me, what part of the museum are we in?
We are in Frying Pan Studio. So it is the music recording studio within the museum. It's pretty new and it's gorgeous. It's just gorgeous, and it has the best acoustics, and it has the original Beatles sound recording equipment from, what's it called?
Abbey Road.
Abbey Lane? Abbey Road?
Abbey Road.
Abbey Road, yes.
How did that come into the possession of the museum?
A man contacted, I think, Brian Ritchie and just said, hey, we've got this incredible thing, you should have it.
So you took it?
Yeah.
Gave it a nice home?
Yeah.
Framed it with a whole
Essentially built the space for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here we are in Mona. I mean, how good is this venue? It is this space on the river. Why do you think Mona is described as one of the most provocative and unconventional museums in the world?
Well, I mean, for one, we don't have a board, right? We have my crazy, eccentric husband and his whims and his genuine interests, which are really about exploring evolution and asking questions like why we make art. And so when you kind of look at the sort of core human drivers, it's things like sex and death. And, well, he doesn't really have a filter. He's a bit on the spectrum. And we have Olivier and Jared, myself. You know, we have a team of really kind of free people who probably wouldn't do a very good job answering to a board. So thank God there isn't one.
So we're dealing with a physiological place that asks its visitors to think and feel. Where do you find yourself following the museum's directive?
I don't know if I'm following the directive.
Let me rephrase that.
Doing a very bad job.
Where do you find yourself within the museum's directive?
Where do I find myself within it? I mean, essentially, I just manipulate my husband as much as possible using sex. So if there's something I really want, you know, I basically just charm my way into it and through seduction and feminine wiles.
And it delivers every time.
Absolutely.
So
these are tried and true, very ancient techniques. They work every time.
Cleopatra.
Men are helpless. They can't help themselves.
Why do you say that?
They're just a subject of their own biology. And they're just so driven, you know, to procreate, to ensure that their genes, you know, are expressed in the next generations. And so that drive is so powerful, you can really hijack it and manipulate them in a number of ways.
So what would you say women's drivers are?
Well, probably the same thing, but, you know, our experience is expressed in a different way. And because men have been, you know, such brutes and so kind of dominant and heavy-handed, we've had to kind of hone different methods for moving through the world. You know, we're probably subject to the same thing. We're all one thing.
Okay. So we've heard this so many times. Mona's put Hobart and Tasmania on the map. Of course, the museum has reimagined what a visit to the Apple Isle can be, but to suggest it's elevated Tasmania's global profile is to overlook the creativity and the work that came before it. To me, Mona isn't just a card player's, a folly that is dropped on a vineyard. It's something more intentional. What do you think it's come to mean for the local community?
I don't know. I like how the local community calls it our Mona. So I think there's a real sense of ownership. And I think it's really beautiful that it's open to the community. So Tasmanians come for free. And I think it's just a place people come and have their minds blown. I don't think they all have the sort of intellectual engagement that, some of the curators might be having or David might be having with an artwork. But it's always been designed to be fun and to be to engage you on a visceral level. So there's no labels on the wall. If you want to read the art wank, as it's called, you can. You can do a deep dive into the sort of intellectual background of a particular work. But it's fun, it's free, you get lost. It's designed so that you're lost. You can't possibly find your way through the first time. There's endless sort of corridors and tunnels taking you to another space, and you just are meant to land somewhere and not really know where you are and have a pure experience with the work. So in that way, it really is open to everyone, and you can have an experience based on your particular interest or state of mind at that given moment. And the state of mind is even encouraged to shift because you go to a bar, you pass the bar before you even start. So I think it really erodes these sort of formal beliefs around a museum as being this very serious and intellectual endeavor and kind of something a little boring that we might fear, or that a lot of the population would fear and resent. And instead, I think it's a place you can come and have fun.
So before we hop into your food memories, let's bring the spotlight back to you. Are you okay with that if we start to?
I think I can handle it.
Would you think me basic if I described you as a living, breathing, walking art form? A provocateur of chaos for the purpose of creation?
Yeah, at the best of times, absolutely. Yeah. Alfredo Jar, who's an artist who has work here in the museum, he asked me one day, why don't you just call everything art? Why isn't it all art? Why isn't your whole life art? And I say life is art. I mean, that was the name of my foundation in New Orleans. And when people ask what kind of art I make, I say life art. And I feel it describes it best, and it's more accessible than conceptual art or performance art. All of those are part of it, but essentially it's engaging life. So yes, but that doesn't mean that I don't, wake up feeling very average and just sort of making coffee and doing, tedious things and sort of being a forgetful human. So when I'm in forgetful human mode, cursing at the driver in front of me, I mean, maybe if there's such a bad driver, that might spark me out of my stupor and I'll come alive again. But there's times when I don't really feel like I'm making art. I'm just kind of sleepwalking.
So are you spending more time sleepwalking or more time making art? Or do you need the sleepwalking to make the art?
I don't know. I think I see the sleepwalking as a deficiency. So I'm hoping that the percentages, shift over time. I don't know. Yeah.
Your first food memory. Now, I love this
Now,
one.
wait, when I travel...
Oh, when you travel.
It all comes to life. It's much harder to sleepwalk in a new environment with the unknown. So I find I need that. I need to just address the unknown. So I either need to travel or I need to shift my brain chemistry, with tequila or psilocybin.
We're going to have to put a little warning
on
this episode.
Well, it's true, it's true. Mezcal works. Mescaline works. But so do ice baths, and saunas. So there's healthy ways to go about it too for those of us struggling with addiction. There are healthy ways to shift your brain chemistry. But I have to do that if I'm in a normal life. Otherwise, travel will do it.
Good fix. And do you get off the island much?
Yeah, we try to. But even then, you can get into a pattern. So you could go to London and you could stay at the same hotel, and you can still sort of easily make things too safe and easy. And I think there's a pull towards that. And also like the part of me that's luxury loving will just kind of magnetize to the hotel selected by American Express, and then you're in their program. So it's really important to break out.
And you catch yourself doing that, don't you?
Yeah, totally.
And then what happens? It's a snap and I'm like, oh, you're out of there, or you just...
Yeah, I mean, something could still happen at the, Mandarin Oriental bar. You can still break out of the bubble. But if you go to like Coober Pedy, which was one of my recent trips, we went with 11 friends. Everything is unexpected. It's not an option to kind of just sort of fuzz into some comfortable reality.
Ready to do the food memories now?
Yes.
Let's do them. Okay, so I want this one for lunch. So after we finish this, I hope it can appear on a menu. Fried rice and spam with Mr. Coffee from a can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my go-to breakfast in Guam when I was in high school, and I was old enough to sort of go off on my own, and I didn't have to be chaperoned by my parents anymore. I would get dropped off early for school, and I would meet my best girlfriend, and we would walk to a little place that had fried rice with spam, peas, and corn in it, and we would get an iced Mr. Coffee from a can. And that was my absolute favorite breakfast.
Every morning?
Yeah, for some time, yeah.
How did you find yourself, your family find themselves in Guam?
Well, I just felt so... Oh, how do we find ourselves in Guam?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we went for a 6-month vacation when I was 5 years old, and we never left. We were in Topanga Canyon in LA, and we went for a little getaway, and that was the end of that.
So what was it like, apart from the fried rice and the spam for breakfast?
Well, it was really hard, It was very hard because I was the only white girl in my school a lot of the time.
Did you see yourself as the only white girl?
Well, I didn't really see myself that way at first. Like, I didn't really know the difference. Kids are innocent. We don't know. We don't see these things. And at first it was kind of cute because I think 5-year-olds are cuter. So they would be like, oh, white hair girl, and touch my hair and play with me as something exotic, but as something it was of interest. I was interesting to them. But as we got older, there was, it could be pretty mean. So yeah, it was a lot. So I really had to endure a lot of that. Hey, white bitch. Hey, what honky? Get out of my way, honky. Like, it was a lot.
So you experienced prejudice from the other side.
Hardcore racism, yeah.
From the other side of the
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm glad I experienced it because it's, I've spent the latter half of my life in the opposite situation where I'm part of the ruling, color of our world, and it's good to have experienced the other side of that.
Do you think those experiences have helped you be compassionate?
Yeah, probably, but I think they really helped me be fluid and adaptable. And they really have helped me be comfortable going into a world where I might think I'm not welcome. So they've made me a better anthropologist because I'm so used to being the outsider. It's just not a problem for me to land myself right into the middle of a culture I'm not a part of and kind of be open and find a way to connect, because I had to do that. I had to find a way to connect, really, in order to survive socially.
So there were a number of other delicacies at the time, weren't there, in Guam?
Oh, yes.
Well, tell us some of them.
Well, I think the really sensational one is fruit bat. So when I arrived in Guam, a beautiful thing about Guam is the fiestas. So it's all about the fiestas every weekend. People don't go to restaurants or clubs. They go to a fiesta, and there's always several on every weekend night, and even during the week. So you and your friends or your friends and their family go to the fiestas, and it was always a long table, and I think that's had a huge influence on my life and work. Always this long table, and inevitably, towards the end of the table, for some reason, because there seemed to be an order about it, red rice was first. Fadang, this beautiful bread made out of the cycad plant, which is known to be kind of toxic, but if you process it the right way, you can make this fluffy bread. That was second. You go through all the dishes. You get to Kelegwin, which is like a cured fish with hot peppers and fresh coconut.
Like a ceviche of sorts.
Like a ceviche, but with lots of coconut in it.
Yeah.
And the amount of coconut grating that everyone had to do before the fiesta, tremendous. And you sit on these special little benches and you would just shave coconut by hand. It was a lot of work. Anyway, you'd pass the Kelegwin. There would be chicken Kelegwin and fish Kelegwin. You go through all of the various dishes, and in the end was a big basket. Next to the whole pig on a spit was a big basket of fruit bat, whole roasted fruit bats.
How was it described to you? I mean, you would have been a young girl, so it wouldn't have been anything
It
different.
didn't have to be described because you walk up and you could see them with their teeth and their eyes and their ears and their wings and their feet with their claws. It was just the whole entire fruit bat.
And so how would you just pick it up and eat
I
it
was
like
shocked and horrified, I was really horrified. But I don't know, I think I managed to give it a taste a few times.
What does it taste like?
I don't remember it being offensive. It was probably really good. I don't think I managed to get past the adorable frozen face of horror animalness.
It's like a petrification of...
Yeah, they looked really sad. I didn't like it.
So it's not
I'm
something-
kind of a natural vegetarian. I just never really liked dead animals.
So we're talking about this, you speak about this long table that brings people together and creates a community, and the food just keeps rolling. Who cooked the food?
Everyone. Huge communal effort. And like I said, always a lot of preparation involved. So I would shred coconut. Everyone's just, the whole family's working together. You're chopping chilies and their green beans. They had the really beautiful long snake beans. The pig, oh God, the pig, I would hear the pig being handled in the backyard.
The squeal.
Yeah, the squeal. I didn't like it. But it was just a community effort, and it was big. And then there was a dance floor. So they would set up tents because Guam, it can be very rainy. Set up some tents, set up a dance floor, spinning lights, a DJ. And we would bring cardboard and break dance on it. And it was just so fun.
Geographic relocation has been a theme of your whole life. You also travelled through more than 50 countries in a 7-year period. What do you think travelling and living in different places during your youth has done to your constitution?
Well, I think coming from Guam, I had a very serious case of wanderlust. So it's a very small island, right? And as soon as I got out, I broke out, and I just wanted to see the world. I just always dreamed of doing that. So
normal people want to leave their small country town. You wanted to leave Guam.
My island, yeah. I really wanted to get out. And I was really curious about travel. I wondered, I am still exploring this idea about how if you engage in life in a certain way, everything just unfolds. And I have these elevated, it could be a form of mental illness. I'm not sure about this. I'm not certain. But I have these elevated experiences where everything seems to be manifesting and falling into place. And this incredible narrative is weaving through my experience. And so when I was younger, I wanted to test that. I wanted to actually have no plan. I wanted to see what happened if I went out with zero plan and just gave myself over to the moment, applied my creativity and my engagement with life, seeing the world as a interconnected entity, seeing reality or existence as one interconnected entity, which many philosophies play with, this idea, and therefore greeting elements of myself or the greater being. That's what people mean when they say namaste, right? They're saying, I recognize you. I honor the God within you. I recognize you. So I was recognizing, the manifestation of life as it came, saying hello, and the most magnificent things would happen. I mean, I still experience this in my work, but I think I first really put it to the test through travel.
You left a little island,
Yes.
in Guam,
Yeah.
And you've come to another little island, haven't you, here in Tasmania?
In the same fucking time zone. Like, I cannot escape this longitude. What is going on here?
What is going on
What
here?
is going on
Why
here?
have you attracted Tasmania into your life?
What is this longitude anyway? Does anyone know the number?
I don't know. No.
Anyway, I can't get out of it, apparently.
So it's...
Northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, doesn't matter.
Are there any similarities between living in Guam and living in Tasmania?
Yeah, they're both small and you're stuck in the antipodes, you know, away from the center of everything. So you have to be the center of everything. Yeah, in both places.
You have to be the center of everything.
You just have no choice. You're like, fuck it, I have to be the center of everything.
So you have to be on, kind of...
You just have to accept that, you know, the outer world is an illusion anyway, right? So we're supposed to find inner peace and happiness. Well, it's a lot easier when there's actually nothing to do.
Is having nothing to do a luxury?
I don't have nothing to do. I am nonstop. I have way too much to do at all times.
So when you do have nothing to do, you know, those times between Christmas and New Year, what happens then?
Oh, I just stay in my robe. I stay in my robe. I do a sauna. I swim in the ocean, in the ice cold ocean. And I tend to read through my life because I'm a bad sleeper. So I'm worried that when I get this hormone thing in order, which for a woman of my age is a thing, you've got to work out your hormones.
Right.
And I'm worried that when I get them in order, I won't read at all because I'll be sleeping through the night again. But maybe on downtime you could actually read a book. You could just sit there and open a book.
Do you find you buy books and you want to read them and the next thing you look at your bedside table and there's like 20, 30, 50 books that you've accumulated? I'll get to that.
Yeah, I've let go of the concern about it. I just let them be there because my thing is I have a few magic spots for books. So one of them is... sorry, David, I know, you know, fuck the NGV, fuck the NGV. They won't share any art with us. But my favorite place to buy a book is in the NGV gallery bookstore. And there's this one spot towards the end, and whoever's curating those books, they're magnificent.
So you're going to let them off that?
Oh my God, I love them so much. They can come guest curate our bookshop for a moment, and we can maybe create some diplomacy between institutions through the bookshop. But you stand there and I swear you just always find the best book. And I read it there. That is when I read the book. I read it for 10 minutes in the store, deeply connect with it, because always it happens to deal exactly with what I'm working on at that moment. So it becomes a reference point. I buy the book, I take it home, and I never open it again.
But you made some comments of the NGV, just deciding not to. How do you feel about that non-existent exchange of work?
I feel like a sort of like sexual energy around it. Like there's a little charge. It's exciting. It's like, ooh, what is this feisty, competitive, electrical charge between our institutions? It's racy. You know, is it between my husband and their director? What's going on? Like, all I know is the paper comes back with the request for loans, and every single piece is unavailable, including a painting that David sold to them on the condition he could borrow it back. So there's just something there. There's like a little, I don't know what it is, but I find it's like a little fun.
What about the staff here? Don't they get upset?
Well, I think the staff just feel beholden on all sides to, you know, whatever's going on. It's sort of like, okay, well, that's going on. And for a while, everyone was saying, oh, no, it's just happenstance, or it just got stuck in that request zone, or, you know, it's just the bureaucratic process. There's nothing going on here. But it's not true. It's not true. It's definitely happening.
A little scandal.
It's a little competitive something or other. And I think a little bit of that can be healthy. You know, it pushes both institutions.
You quite like a little bit of argy-bargy, don't you? It feeds you a little.
A little bit, yeah, because I think it's, like I said, it's an electrical charge. So when you have opposite sides, you've got the negative and the positive. We're clearly the positive and they're clearly the negative. And those two things are creating a charge like a battery. And that's electrical. And I think it can actually be good. I've had this experience in other areas. Like I have this in my work at the moment with Christine Milne. You know, she's the hero of the green movement. And she's decided that I'm very bad. And every chance she gets, she says something very bad about me in a publication, in a newspaper, or on her Twitter. And I realize like she's my nemesis muse. Sometimes you need a nemesis to give you that little charge. And I think it is almost a little sexual.
Wow.
It's like, I can feel it in my groin and, okay, really? All right, let's go. And I think it adds to the work.
Do you think she gets a little bit of movement down there?
I think she might be. I'm not sure if she's a lesbian, but I think I have found that sometimes your haters are actually in love.
Wow.
Yeah, I had the most incredible experience with this on the Gold Coast. Can I tell you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this was wild. So I do engage in a little reverse trolling now and then. So, you know, you go on Instagram, you say something and you get trolled. Well,
So you're baiting the trolls.
Well, no. I just said something innocently like, la, 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 here I am. And then the trolls come out and go, rum, rum, rum. And so then I'll sometimes reverse troll them when I'm feeling decadent. It's like an guilty pleasure. So I go in and I'll reverse troll them, usually with lots of kisses, and like inappropriate romantic comments. And, you know, I might look them up, and if they ride a motorcycle, if it's like a bogan dude with a motorcycle, I'll be like, you look so hot on your motorcycle. Like
he is not expecting this.
No, and it's really fun. I think it just breaks open the whole dynamic. So anyway, I'm on the Gold Coast and I make a post and a woman comes on and trolls me, and she says that, you know, she says I'm a misogynist essentially, and she says she can't wait to eat the rich. Now this was based on Eat the Problem.
Yeah.
Right, my food work about transforming flaw into feature. But I was saying you can use invasive species not only for food, but for fashion. She said, I cannot wait to eat the rich, implying that the rich are the real problem, right? And I wrote back, kinky, you know, with the love heart eyes. But then I looked her up and I saw like she has an OnlyFans account. I don't know, she's certainly very sexy. And and I thought, you know, in my fantasy, well, maybe she's like a call girl. And so then my husband and I were, you know, having it off and we were playing with this sexual fantasy. She lives in the Gold Coast, we realized. So she's like literally there. And I know this is so inappropriate, but it was helping me process my pain and grief around being trolled. And it was adding to my sexual pleasure. We started fantasizing that we could hire my troll. Which is not our style. Like, we're actually really monogamous and really boring, but it was a great fantasy. So a mental exercise. And so then the next day I was doing a photo shoot for the Ladies Lounge in the Gold Coast. And I think I'm setting up like my handsome men. I've got all these handsome nude men, not nude, but like little gold bikini men in the shot. And then I'm setting up the shot. I'm like, oh, I really need a woman. I just need a really hot woman with gorgeous tits and a little bikini in the background here to really capture the Gold Coast vibe. And I suddenly thought, my troll. And okay, first of all, her name, the most beautiful name, her name is Diamond Lakota.
Ooh.
Right?
Says it all.
Yeah, and I had done all this spiritual work in my youth with the Lakota people and, you know, the original Americans, the first people. And so I have a special connection to that. So I'm like, ooh, Diamond Lakota. I direct messaged her and asked if she would like to be in the photo shoot. And she said, for you, anything. And she showed up just looking phenomenal, like a pure goddess. And she just modeled so beautifully. And she even got involved in the directorship of the photo shoot. She's super smart. She's from Tasmania. And we had this gorgeous connection.
I mean, there's a whole lot of serendipity going on in there.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, reality is quite magical if you get into it. So I'm scientific in my thinking, but I have these experiences where things do unfold. and it doesn't feel like I'm in control. I'm not writing the script.
So you're bringing this and this together and making it happen. I mean, this being the head, this being the heart, and then feeling.
Or maybe like short-circuiting it by inviting in the enemy. I think that's part of it. There's a transmutation that takes place. There's some shift by recontextualizing the so-called problem. It just breaks open and shifts, and then here she is, my beautiful friend.
So would you say
your so-called enemy is rarely actually your enemy? That's why I'm saying when I do turn lesbian, Christine Milne and I are going to have it off.
Should we move on to your next food memory, or should we spend a little bit more time?
Are you my therapist, or is this a food podcast?
You're the one giving me all this information. This is you. You're in control. I'm just sitting here getting a little bit Presbyterian with all.
Ooh, I like it.
With all the comments. But you know what? I do want to step back a little bit, and we can probably. I hope we can. Sorry, Loz. Sorry, Chris. We can bring this back in, but we missed out talking about Mum. Now, your mum still lives in Guam.
Yeah, no? She doesn't anymore. She lived there until recently.
And
she lives in LA now.
She lives in... And has she visited you and David here in Tasmania?
Yes.
What does she make of this place?
Well, she's a terror. So every time she comes here, oh my God, the stories I hear them for like years afterwards. So I don't let her come here too often because she's so wild.
Explain wild.
She's so fun. She's so fun and she's so wild. She's just pure fabulous. She's a walking ab fab episode.
Right.
So anything about me that's fabulous and over the top is definitely a kind of, a watered down version of my mom. My mom is times 1,000.
So she loves it here.
She loves it here, but she just sort of just loves it everywhere. She just loves life.
And so your father, before he died, he had a career where he left-turned. So what was he doing before he had a complete focus of career?
So he was in aerospace. He was at Rand Corporation. He was astrophysicist at Rand Corporation, and he was in the think tank. So that was the center of the industrial war complex, really dreaming up American imperialism.
What years are we talking
He was
here?
there in the 50s. So, so he was there really at the kind of height of this world domination program, working on designing weapons, rockets. He worked on the space shuttle.
How would he talk about his work? I mean, did you ever take him to school and say, this is my dad and this is what he does?
Well, we didn't really have that, the education program in Guam doesn't really have that.
And then he did something...
It's like lucky that there is a school at all.
And then he did something, and he did a 360 and went into a career?
Yeah, so what happened is the entire think tank in 1958 took LSD as part of an experiment to just see what...
At the government's...
Well, it was all under the government in a way, right? Well, Rand Corporation, certainly deeply tied. And, they just decided they wanted to see what would happen when intellectuals engaged in this stuff. There was no stigma around it. Obviously has very interesting effects and changes the way you see things and kind of opens up a lot of creativity. So I think they hoped that the think tank would be able to design better weapons and, ensure American domination to a better extent.
This sounds extraordinary.
It's wild.
Isn't it?
Yeah, well, there were no feelings around it, right? There hadn't been a hippie movement yet. So there was no kind of, it was just a neutral substance that they could play with and experiment with and see what its impact was on, aerospace.
So what happened to your dad's processes and thinking then? What did he do next?
Well, I mean, my understanding is that basically the entire think tank left and said, we don't want to do this anymore. I mean, they were taking massive doses, right? Nothing like people are taking today. So they would have had the full blow it open God experience and would have thought, what am I doing? I don't care about dominating another country. I don't believe in war. And I think that, they had a reckoning. So I know Nancy Nimitz was in his think tank, and she was the daughter of General Nimitz. So, and she left. I think a lot of them just said, we're not doing this anymore.
What did he do next?
He became a rolfer.
What's a rolfer?
A rolfer is a kind of deep tissue body work that deals with the fascia and opens up tight, locked up spaces, and I think people have really emotional they experience emotional and psychological shifts through that work. It can be really intense. It can hurt a lot. So you go in and then the hurt becomes a metaphor. It's not only physical, it's emotional. All these old memories come up for people, and it's a form of therapy.
So transformative.
Yeah, transformative.
So much like I'm drawing comparisons between you and the way you transform an enemy into an ally.
Absolutely. You go into the knot.
Yeah.
You go into that dark little space of dysfunction or locked up pain or whatever that is, fear, and it's usually your own fear. I'm usually actually just dealing with my own fear, really, at the end of the day, and my own hang-ups. So anyway, you go into there, and then you just, with Rolfing, you have to breathe into it. So they say, just breathe it, and it's torture. I can't even tell you. The old school Rolfers were like that. The new Rolfers are much gentler. But it would just be so outrageously painful, and they would just say, breathe, and you would just stay with it, and you would just stay in there and breathe, and it would open up, and when it did, everything would let loose. It would just feel incredible.
How thankful are you to Mum and Dad for giving you these gifts?
Yeah, that's really gorgeous, right? It's really gorgeous.
It's because it's allowing you to do the stuff and say the stuff and
It
sit
really
in the
is.
seat opposite
It
me.
really
and
is.
share.
I really am the beneficiary of a beautiful legacy of healing work. And I'm really lucky to have had a beautiful, parental experience like that, on my dad's side, and then the kind of outrageous freedom of expression on my mother's. And the other thing my dad always taught me was surrender. So whenever you go into a situation, you just surrender. Just go into the darkness and breathe and surrender. If you have those two things, you can go on a psychedelic journey as well, because you'll have the tools to go through it, because it's not easy, not always easy.
Second food memory, I want to get to this one. Eat the problem, feasting. Now, what happened in 2019?
Okay, so 2019 was the culmination of a really long inquiry, which was called Eat the Problem. And that was about, this deeper philosophical idea of transforming a flaw into a feature or a problem into something to celebrate. And so in this case, I explored that general idea, which I'm exploring all the time. In this case, it was explored through invasive species as the problem. And so I looked at every plant and animal that, that's hated, that's a blight and a problem, and looked at how we can turn it into an asset, and invited artists from all over the world and chefs from all over the world to think about that. And we made a book with everyone's recipes for these invasive species. Some of them are food, some are art, some are fashion, some are even like scientific remedies for sort of, a acidified river as a result of mining. Anything, you name it, it's all in there. There's magicians and there's voodoo priests. There's recipes for all kinds of things. That became a book. And then in 2019, I wanted to turn it into a feast, into a living experience. So I have a history of, a favorite medium of mine is the feast, where essentially it's a living installation. As a guest, you sit in and you become part of it. You're dressed so perfectly for this right now.
Would I be invited to this space?
You would have been in the powder blue gray section. So the table, every section of the table was a different color.
Of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Of the whole spectrum of the rainbow, just like the book,
How
like
inclusive.
The pages of the book. And we would run through those colors, and the guests had to dress, we gave them the color swatch of that table, and they had to dress exactly in that color swatch. And then the plates are all made, the cutlery, I designed everything specifically for it. And you would move, every course you would change to a different section of the table, and you would eat the food that was all that color, and it would have a whole variety of invasive species. And you just move through. And it was musical. The servers were all performers. And so it was all this very, very choreographed ritual that you were part of.
So you didn't waste a second, you didn't waste a corner of anything. It was all choreographed.
No.
But the guests don't have any idea that they're being taken on this highly choreographed experience, do they? They just go with like a current.
Well, I think that's what's fun about it, because some do. You know, some have been to one of my feasts before, right? So they know that it's going to be adventure. They don't know what kind of adventure exactly they're in for, but they know that there will be one, so they understand that. Others come, I think in this case, I allowed people to buy tickets, so that was really nice, because that means you have people coming who have no idea what they're in for. And I think that, again, the energy of that is great, right? So it's nice to kind of mix it up. And even though it was highly choreographed and every second was designed or imagined in advance, there's still things that happened. So the guests at one point, many of the guests ended up on the tables, walking down. We'd had these beautiful children dancers dancing down the center of the table. And I think that after a while, and after a few courses, which, you know, some of which included special drinks, people ended up on the table themselves.
The depiction of feasting is it appears a lot in artwork throughout history. Caravaggio and Da Vinci, and those particular artists use feasting as a form of communion.
Look, they paint so much better than I do, especially Caravaggio. I mean, Caravaggio, wow, like he's such an incredible painter. I'm trying to locate one of his paintings actually at the moment to curate it into the ladies' lounge, and I'm very hopeful. But his painting, like, you know, I am nothing in comparison, but his feasts, like those feasts look boring. They didn't design the cutlery and the serviettes and the and then goblets and the plates. No, they did not. It's all just hodgepodge. It's just a bunch of random stuff.
But do you think they were? Do you think they were?
Last Supper? No, sorry, no.
Okay, I'm going to let you. I'm just going to let you win. I'm in your space right now. It's all yours. It's all yours. So what is? So the table again? I keep going back to the image in Guam, that long communal table. So you take that with you. You take that experience with you.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful. It's ancient, and you're right. Like it's a thread that weaves through history, and we feel happy. I think that it represents abundance and togetherness. It's communal. It's a communal experience, and it's a ritual for our time. It's a ritual that's held up. We've lost a lot of our rituals, especially in an atheist culture like our own. So we need them, you know, we need ritual. And I just love the feast. I love the communal table. In New Orleans, I used to run a table down the entire block. One table, seat 300 people together. And it's so powerful. So powerful to sit there and look down and feel like you're part of something.
And something that you've created. And,
yeah.
And a community that you've brought together around food.
Yeah. Again, you know, you say something you've created, and it's like, I was actually going to say to feel like you're part of something greater than yourself. And I feel that way about creation in general. You know, you were saying in the instance of my enemy, my troll becoming my collaborator, right? You said that there were so many coincidences. Well, I think it's easy for people to understand this with music. You know, musicians say it all the time. They say, the music comes through me. I'm not really creating the work. Like, I'm a witness. And so when I do a project, when I do an artwork, a feast, whatever it is, as soon as you set the intention and set out on that path to create it, and my fingers are making little quotation marks, because you're not creating it. You become a witness. You become a channel for the work.
But it takes a lot for an artist performer to come outside themselves and put themselves at the back, doesn't it? to bring the artwork forward.
All you have to do is notice, that's it. It's like, wow, how did that happen? This is so incredible. I mean, yes, everything you've learned along the way in your life is part of it. So, my obsession with design objects, my time in architecture, the way that I will really hone in on a millimeter, my aesthetic, my severe and strict aestheticism comes through for sure. But the way it all comes together is just, it's just a magnificent experience, I think, as an artist. I think a lot of artists would say the same thing. They're not doing it. Writers say that. Mathematicians say it. My dad used to say it when he was doing math. He used to say, it's so beautiful, I feel like I'm watching it unfold. He's sitting there writing all of these numbers, which look completely, I can't read them. But he just had that experience. So I have that experience too. I feel like I'm a witness.
Planet Kirsha, what's a day in the life like for you?
Well, I try to set some parameters of good behavior for myself, right? So I take my daughter to school. I make my coffee. I enjoy my moment in my robe, do a little journal or do a little whatever project of the moment. And chill out time when no one's allowed to talk to me on the couch. It's like 30 minutes.
30 minutes is yours.
Yeah, my family's around, but I'm not expected to do anything.
What do they ask of you?
Nothing during that time. Nothing.
do they ask for their own 30 minutes or something similar to?
Oh, they both want attention.
Right.
They both want my affection and my attention and my adoration.
So when it's, I would imagine it's on all the time for them. So when it's not there for that 30 minutes, they're probably feeling a bit, oh, where's Mama? Where's my
No,
wife?
they're cool with it. They're super cool. We just have this, and they're on the sofa too, and they're doing their thing. It's really nice. A nice morning. And then I drive our daughter to school, and then I go to the gym. And I look like a complete insane person, I'm sure, because I've discovered this new thing where I can go on the elliptical machine and write at the same time with my thumbs on my iPhone. So I just go 30 minutes on the elliptical machine and it's just breathing and sweating so hard and just writing furiously. And it's my most creative time in the day. But at the same time, done, worked out. Go push do 10 chest things and a few little weights and some sit-ups, done. Go, and then after that it's just meetings, working on whatever it is I'm working on.
Which is a lot, constantly.
Yeah, all kinds of things. Too many,
but you wouldn't have it any other way, right? No, there's too much to do.
There are too many wonderful things to do, and again, I'm learning how to get out of the way. When the right team is there, you actually don't have to do it. So, our kids' garden program, for example, which is all about food, all about teaching kids what food is and getting real fresh food in their hands from when they're very little, teaching them how to grow it, how to cook it, how to sit together at a table, how to make their own plates, how to make their own, it's like a mini feast, right? And it's culture building. It's the art of building culture and restoring these essential human things to our contemporary culture where they're often lost. So that gorgeous program, well, I have such a good team now, and I'll come to something and I'll just look at it and go, wow, that's incredible. Yeah, that's good.
We know that food informs your practice. Academia, the scientist, knowledge keeps you informed. Travel keeps you curious. And the unconventional is your spirit
Travel
animal.
keeps me creative.
Creative.
Yeah.
Okay. And the unconventional is your spirit animal. It's quite a unique ecosystem you've got going on there, KK.
Well, yeah, look, I'm really lucky. I'm lucky to have a family that supports me being myself. That's pretty lucky. And to have landed in a situation where I can be myself. I think we all have all these dimensions to ourselves. We're not, everyone's multifaceted. I have, for whatever reason, made a practice of accepting paradox. So I can accommodate multiple forces in myself.
Was there a time when paradox was just jarring?
More confusing, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you took it by the horns?
I think again, you just have no choice, right? It's like what we were talking about with making art. You have no choice but to kind of recognize that this is how it is.
So there's an acceptance.
There's an acceptance.
Yeah.
And so early on, I started calling it accommodation of paradox. It was one of the kind of golden rules of my art space in New Orleans. And that was a really wild art space because, that was a row of abandoned houses in a really tough neighborhood, really like the gangster neighborhood with the highest shooting rate, deaths every weekend of gangster boys, a real energy on the block, nonstop music.
So as a normal white woman would be fearful of this, you went in there ready to...
I was attracted to it because I couldn't actually stand living with white neighbors in white suburbia because it wasn't natural to me because of my childhood, right? Yeah. So I just went where I felt best or at home. And it definitely, the energy of that neighborhood was just really exceptional. It was just on. And I liked my neighbors, and they were non-conventional. They weren't feeding into the kind of modern American paradigm, the program. They were not part of the program. They're making their own program.
Tell me more about the New Orleans project.
Well, I landed there because I liked it, right? Everyone said, don't ride your bike across St. Claude Avenue at the time. So I rode straight over there, first thing. I mean, I'd been traveling around the third world for a long time by now, alone, and I wasn't easily intimidated. So I was curious, and I went over there, and I just felt like time shifted. I don't know if it slowed down or sped up, but it was different. I was not in reality anymore. I actually had a surrealist experience with life where I was just watching the scene as I was riding my bike through it, and I felt so alive. I felt like, wow, I need to be here. So I made a decision just right then that I was going to live there. So I started looking for a place, and my boyfriend at the time, who's an artist, he found this abandoned bakery on my favorite street between Music and Art Street. I bought the abandoned bakery for $25,000 and renovated it myself. I mean, I slept on the floor. I showered with a hose outside. There was no plumbing. That was me plumbing it, was getting hose outside, get the water turned on. And I had people trying to break in. I was slamming the windows on random guys' hands. It was insane. It was scary, but it was exciting. And
did you have somebody with you? And I'm not talking
No.
I'm talking about a physical, but what about like a guardian angel or something? Was there someone else with you? Because how did you get through that solo?
Well, the thing is, no one wanted to hurt me. My neighbors were beautiful people, really good, really ethical, really beautiful people. The boys were shooting each other from, neighboring gangs because they had a vendetta because one had killed their brother. It was not personal towards me. No one wanted to hurt me. Did the crack addicts want to steal my stuff? Yeah. Of course they want to steal your stuff, but then they feel bad about it and they come in and say nice things to you and like sweep your floor because they're not bad people either. It's just a neighborhood full of really good people.
You've got to have a real an internal strength, don't you, to take this on?
I had to learn how to be anti-fragile. I read that book by Nassim Taleb later, and it really was applicable. I had to learn you just have to learn how to work with the forces, and I think that was such a good hands-on, flaw into feature. How is the problem something to celebrate, or you have to work with it. So I learned how to design furniture that was too heavy to be stolen. So, because I'm a designer, if I want a gorgeous table, which you better believe I want a fucking gorgeous table, no ugly stuff. I told you I'm severe in my aestheticism. There is no tolerance for ugly. So I would need a gorgeous table, but you had to design it so that it would require more than 3 people to pick up because the crack addicts weren't that organized. And then I would even play with it. I remember, they didn't steal clothing, thank God. So I had a really great wardrobe. And other than that, I had 0 possessions. If I tried to buy a phone, gone. If I tried to own a VCR, gone.
And you were okay with that?
Well, you just, it's just reality. You just work with it. And I was working on a conceptual exhibition called Theft, where the work wouldn't come to life until the thievery activated it. So it's like you making work that kind of thrives on life or on reality. It's pro-ecosystem work.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Which the Ladies' Lounge, I didn't even mean for it to be, but it really was. It ended up being this piece that came to life when the problem walked in. Right? When he didn't walk in, when he wasn't allowed to walk in. It came to life when he couldn't walk in. And the problem became really like the solution, like the gift from heaven. It was a heavenly gift. It really brought the work to life. So I think you just have to be kind of pro-context. Otherwise, you're just going to be fighting everything all the time.
Are there things that you fight for?
Of course, of course there would be things that I'd fight for. But I'm always seeking systemic change, I think, in those cases. And I'm always seeking a conversion of the enemy.
It's like I said in the beginning, you're thinking of a tomorrow when you're not here.
Yeah, or even one where I am. Like I've been working on the old growth forest in Tasmania for the last few years. That's been my number one obsession, my main work. And that's the part of the work where my nemesis muse comes in. She doesn't like my work, but
does she not like you're basically going for the same thing she is. Is it your approach that she
she doesn't like my method. Yeah, we have a different method, right?
But whose method is working?
I don't know. I suspect both. I suspect both work in different ways and at different times.
Do you think at some point...
I imagine they're probably complementary.
I was just about to say, do you think at some point she'll come round, or do you think there could be some
I doubt it.
Ego there for the nemesis?
I don't know about that, but I suspect she really believes her criticisms. So I think there's an issue because, for example, she and Bob Brown Foundation... Their statement is that they want to end all native logging. And I thought that that's what I wanted when I started out. But as I investigated things further, I've learned that maybe I don't want to end all native logging. That actually there's some native logging that I find very sensitive and appropriate. And that is a kind of a collaboration with nature that's healthy. And that would supply the materials, that we use.
It sounds something that our Indigenous communities would have done.
An Indigenous approach to, absolutely, like the traditional ways.
Yeah.
And basically a way that is sustainable. So if you're thinking about
that's passed
future
down
generations, right? What I love about Indigenous cultures is they're often thinking about the generations before and after them. And so you're caring for things so that you can pass them down. I consider nature living. I consider nature, I love the rights of nature movement. I think nature should be bestowed with rights. And bestowed is the wrong word. It has rights. We should just recognize them. So I see nature as a living entity. I see it as our, you could call it our grandmother or whatever you want to say. Precious. And humans are here. And we use resources. So I think that there are times and places where we can have an appropriate relationship with nature that includes harvest. Are we doing that? There are some people who are. There are some really sensitive foresters out there doing a beautiful job. And I think the good ones are always open to learning more. They've been paying attention a long time, and they're saying they continue to pay attention. So if the message is, this is going to result in a degraded ecosystem down the line, they don't want that. They're going to shift that. So I support those foresters. Do I think that the entire forest estate should continue to be logged? No. I really think everyone's going to have to sit together at a table, and we're going to have the scientists and industry and environmentalists, but really, and of course, Indigenous. I would think hosted by Indigenous, because they should take the lead.
A table provided by you, of course.
Well, let Indigenous take the lead, but if they want me to help, I would be very happy to help on this table. I actually have a dream for a table in the forest, okay? I've got an artwork. I've got an artwork in the works.
I was waiting for you
It's called The Last Tree, and it is a Last Supper, but it's at the last tree. It's the last giant tree felled. But I can't make this work yet. I can't make the work until the last giant tree is felled, meaning until we commit that there won't be any more.
Right.
So currently, every so often, a giant 400-year-old tree is felled. And so when I say there's nuance in native logging, there is nuance. But is there any question around old growth logging? For me, the answer is no. Ancient forest, the ancient untouched forest, it's spiritual, it's irreplaceable. It's our mother. We really need to just take care of her.
Gaia.
Yeah, just take care of her and celebrate her. Also, we'll get rich. I've investigated over the last 3 years the carbon and biodiversity markets. We stand to make so much more money by protecting these precious, irreplaceable forests than we do by harvesting, putting them on the harvest schedule. And even the loggers themselves are saying, can we take old growth forest off the logging schedule? Can we do this in a way that makes sense so that we have an industry we can be proud of? So it's really kind of unanimous, and that's what I'm advocating for. But in the eyes of some of my, critics, that's not enough. I feel like I'm just going to focus on this because I feel very clear that this is worth achieving and we should take care of it. And when we do, I think it'll be so much better that the leaders from the industry side and that the politicians who are from the right and who have supported industry and maybe have a history of not supporting the environment, I think what's profound and interesting is for them to say, we are ending old growth logging. Let them do it. So I spend a lot of time with them, and we drink martinis, and I think that looks bad. So that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem.
Let's move on to your third food memory. Your last memory, we're going trepid. We're heading to Tibet. Now we're having yak cheese necklaces and butter tea.
Yeah, that's right. That was about all I could eat in Tibet.
Were you vegetarian at the time?
I was vegetarian. I had a lot of momos as well.
Oh, the dumplings.
Yeah, they're so beautiful. Yeah. Tibet in the winter in 1998 was maybe not like this like incredible food culture opportunity because it's remote and really there's just not a lot there's not a lot growing. So for a vegetarian it was tough. But I was completely mesmerized by the cheese necklaces. I thought they were just jewelry at first.
As in, they're physical necklaces?
Yeah. So I would hitchhike with these truck drivers, right? And I just remember they're Tibetan and they don't speak any English, but gorgeous, gorgeous people. And they were wearing these really exotic necklaces. I was admiring them. But when one guy was kind of like, he was giving me a necklace and I was so grateful, like, what, really? Wow, no, thank you, that's so nice. Then he takes his necklace and he's putting it in his mouth and he's pointing to me like I'm supposed to put my necklace in my mouth. And I'm like, why? I don't understand. I'm just sort of doing it like, okay, cultural ritual. Like a baby teething, okay?
Like those lollies, those bracelet lollies that we had as a necklace and you just...
Yeah, and
you
so
had no idea.
I would take it out because it's ice cold, it's literally freezing. There's no heat in the cab.
Did it smell on you?
No, there's no smell. Everything's frozen.
Right.
There's no plumbing, and there's literally shit all over the backyard of a house. of all the people who have been shitting all winter long, but it doesn't smell at all. It's sterile. Nothing lives, you know. You need bacteria for smell. And of course, a large part of eating is smell. So I'm putting these hard beads in my mouth, trying to participate in this ritual. And I just keep taking it out because, like, okay, I did that, haha, nice. Keeps pushing it back, putting it back, and I eventually start to taste
the saliva activates.
Yeah, the heat of my mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm suddenly tasting, oh, wow, what is this? Wow, and I love cheese. I really love cheese, and it was delightful. Very gamey.
Describe the flavor.
Yak,
Gamey.
yak cheese.
Right, and so describe the necklace. Did it go all the way
It
around?
goes all the way to your belly button.
So it's huge.
And it's beads all the way around. Well, yeah, you need food, you know?
Are they decorative? They
were sort of cubes,
balls?
like they weren't round as I recall. Right. They were cubes, and they were just a beautiful cube long necklace and multiple ones draping at various lengths.
And what colour was it?
Off-white.
Right. Mm-hmm. Did you bring any home?
No, every time I try to do that, I get stopped at customs.
So you do try.
No, I haven't tried since I came back from Corsica with like 30 hams. Even though I'm a vegetarian, I just thought pescatarian, I thought all my friends would love these artful works of handmade hams, and they're stunning. So I bought them all, and I lost them all. And I realized, what am I doing? Hello, biosecurity. So... And then Tasmania, forget it. I learned.
The buttered tea in Tibet also is something that appeared.
Yeah, and I, again, thought that was completely disgusting. Wow, gross, you know, liquid butter, tea, you're going to drink that? It just didn't make sense. I mean, later it became big with the keto set, right? The Atkins diet.
Yeah.
They were putting butter in their coffee instead of milk. But... It just surprised me how absolutely delicious it is when you're freezing cold, you haven't had any heat, and I think you're just burning through energy, and you just need liquid butter.
What does the butter feel like going through your body?
Oh, just warm and good. And it's yak butter, so it's gamey. Again, I think these things are site specific, right? You need it in the place.
So in the absence of food, you had these two comforts.
Yeah, absolutely. I swear that butter tea got me through. I don't think I would have made it through a day. And it's -40. It's so cold. It's just so unbelievably cold. You just need that heat and energy.
What was your thinking going to Tibet into those temperatures? Or did you not think?
Well, it just happened to be winter. I think I intentionally went into Russia knowing we were going into winter because, you know, I've been reading Dostoevsky, and been studying the Soviet history, and I feel like to properly experience Moscow, you just need the winter. You need for the Russian vibe, right? You need all the fur coats and the fur hats and the kind of like grumpy disposition. So winter, I found Moscow and winter to be perfect, just right on brand. And then I took the Trans-Mongolian train, and that was... I got to Lake Baikal in Siberia, and that was sad. It would be way better to go there in the summer. And then I got into Mongolia, and I was planning to like really spend a long time, but I left quickly because I was too fucking cold. My friend's lens of his camera just cracked the minute we got off the train. Just snap. Just so cold. Everything's breaking. Nothing's working. You just can't function.
Right.
But yeah. It was, the little bits I endured were magnificent. It was good.
So travel gets you to experience some cultural differences. You found yourself in Lebanon during Ramadan.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was really amazing. I mean, my whole experience in Lebanon was just so awesome. And
what is it about the Lebanese? Because I love the Lebanese. I love
beautiful.
Lebanese anywhere, but Lebanese in Lebanon is something else.
Have you been there?
Oh my God, yes.
Ooh, what were you doing?
I was traveling with a friend. We were there for 2 weeks actually, and we found. I mean, one of I actually thought we were being kidnapped, but we were on, we went to a rooftop bar. It was, Beirut in the summer, those rooftop
Stylish.
bars. Stylish. People are stylish.
Yeah.
And people are buying you drinks and everybody's friendly when you're not a local.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Convivial and fun. So my friend and I were there talking to this group of people, and they said, "What are you doing now?" And we were like, "Oh, I don't know. We're traveling." Mm-hmm. And they said, "Come with us to a party." So they put us in. They put us in their car and they drove us for a long period of time. And I said to my friend, "We're dead.
We're in trouble.
We're in a lot of trouble." We ended up in an area called Beitrun, which is a seaside town on a beach, and we danced the night into the morning and beyond.
Wow.
And then afterwards, we're like, "How the hell are we going to get back to Beirut?" Mm-hmm. And they said, don't worry, we're going to my auntie's place." So we went to the aunt's place, which was a home that belonged to the bishops, the Catholic bishops, and we stayed the night there. And the rooms had all these frescoes, these Catholic frescoes and all the rest of it. And we woke up in the morning and there are our clothes washed and pressed. I mean, this is Lebanese hospitality.
Hospitality.
On, outside our bedrooms, and we woke up to this huge breakfast.
Yeah.
So here is us going from one thinking that's it, we're dead, to
just being, the guest of honor and treated, beautifully.
And brushed and polished and then sent back to Beirut, and we were like, we never had that. So your experience of Lebanon. Yeah,
so I went doing an art project, and I met this poet in the South. I befriended him. He was just interesting. He was quoting, I think, Hafiz or Rumi, I can't remember. And he invited me into this circle of his family and friends, and they were all intellectuals. They were all just brilliant and, very philosophical. The conversations were just all-consuming. They treated me like a queen. I was the guest of honor. And then they all gathered together with me, a special meeting, and they said, "We've been talking amongst ourselves, and we decided that we want you to stay in southern Lebanon to write a book."
Let's be clear, southern Lebanon is slightly dangerous.
Well, it has a history. And yes, and I have to say everything was bombed, but everything, in Beirut had been bombed. You're really living in the shadow of war.
But they do something with that. They do something. They do what you do with conflict.
They turn it into something gorgeous. There's more life because of what they've had to go through. And the architecture, the interiors that are so opulent in Beirut, not in the South, those opulent, over-the-top interiors contrasted by the completely broken down, bombed out building is...
And they don't see it like that at all.
I know, well, they're used to it, right? And that's sad, that's just life. But in the South, they'd been through a lot, and I said, okay, I'll stay. You have to help me find an apartment. And they said, no way, way too dangerous. You're gonna have to stay with Atui's mother. You stay with the women. So they put me into the mother's house with her daughters. It was sort of a lady's house, and
I can feel something brewing here. This is.
It was. Oh, they were the first night. I went and I cried. First, I went into the toilet and cried. Everyone was there to greet me. It was a big celebration. They were so warm. And then I went into the toilet and cried because the toilet was a pickaxe hole in the floor, and it was really, really bare bones.
It wasn't the Orient.
No, it wasn't the Mandarin Oriental. And I had been in a 5-star hotel on this plush job. So I was like, oh, wow, Kirsha, what did you do? But I went to sleep that night. They forced me into the only bed in the house. And I woke up in the morning and all the children of the neighborhood were gathered around the bed just waiting for me to wake up. I felt like Sleeping Beauty. It was so beautiful. And we just had a wonderful time. I'm so happy I had that experience. I stayed with them for 5-6 months. I'm so happy I had that experience because now with the war in Israel and Hezbollah, this was a Hezbollah family. Everyone in the family was Hezbollah.
What can you tell us about Hezbollah?
I could probably tell you quite a lot.
For another podcast episode.
Yeah, I certainly could have had a career in espionage. Some other people thought that's what I was up to, because why else was I there, you know? There was some suspicion by a couple members, really only one member of the family. He was the one who got the money every month from Iran.
Wow.
But I was not working for any agency, and they were, except for him, incredibly hospitable.
How privileged do you feel for these life experiences?
Yeah, look, I just feel, it's a gift. I mean, just, being alive, right? I don't know. I don't feel that grateful. I know everyone's supposed to have great, deep gratitude, and I know I should.
But why don't you?
I don't have gratitude because I just feel like we're here dealing with ourselves all the time. I don't know. I just feel like we're all one. And I marvel. I marvel at existence and this thing, called the universe that we're part of. What is this? Why is it here? Why are we here? I have awe. I think it's magnificent. I admire it. I admire its beauty. I used to feel gratitude. I don't feel gratitude. I think I'm rebellious because when you go to a hippie gathering, everyone has to stand like this and say, I just want to express my deep gratitude. And I'm just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it's a bit of a humble brag. I get it.
I hate it.
Yeah,
I hate it so much.
agree.
It's like a form of language. I feel like I'm in church, in a repressive church.
Well,
I'm being rebellious against it. I have no gratitude whatsoever.
But you're thankful. There is a thankfulness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a celebration of.
There is I think it's a celebration of, and a joy and a delight. And like I said, I feel like a witness. So I just feel like I'm watching this magnificent thing unfold. And I certainly feel lucky, I can say that, to be inside of it.
Well, let's get you out of there. And
it's like my friend said she hates the word relationality.
Oh.
That word I must have missed that because I must not have read the right publications because I'm not offended by it. I'm like, great, relationality.
Well, let's get you out of there.
Okay.
And let's talk about when you met David.
Okay.
Would you like to tell us where you met?
Sure, you want to? We met at a bar in Art Basel during the art fair. We met at the bar the beer garden that everyone goes to afterwards. And he walked in looking all kind of...
Did you know who he was?
No.
So it was a bit of
no one knew
Mary
who he was. Yeah, no one knew who he was. Mona didn't exist yet.
And at what point did
No one would even sell him art at the art fair.
Really?
Yeah, because he was like a random guy from Tasmania.
And at what point did
And they're very snobby. They're like, no, you cannot have this Anselm Kiefer painting.
And at what point was he given artwork?
Well, once Mona opened up, they were all calling and all, at his feet, just begging for him to come to their gallery. All of them.
And how did he process that?
He's fine. He just doesn't care what other people think very much. That's one of his qualities. So he's just great. Like, he didn't care when people didn't think he was important. And he thought it was funny when they wouldn't sell him art. I found it offensive because I was more subject to kind of people's judgment and opinions. And I found it excruciating to go into the white box gallery and not be allowed to buy a work of art. It was like such an insult.
Did you realise at that moment where you met him, you were going to marry this man?
I wrote to a close friend who I thought had a similar spirit to his own, to David's, and I said that I felt like I might have met the one. I definitely had...
That's a very big statement coming from
really
somebody
big.
like you.
Yeah, I really felt...
Not
wow.
that there's anything wrong with you.
It was powerful. And
Yeah.
I just liked the look of him right off. He was so irreverent. He was not fitting into the mold. He has a I don't give a fuck attitude. And it just shows. He just walks in and you just feel it. And everyone else was really molding themselves to the convention of Art Basel because it's so Swiss and it's so serious. And this was the peak of the art world really being very into itself. And I was really feeling that. And he just broke all the rules, and it was really attractive.
At what point did you come into the Mona process? Were you there at the beginning, or had it already been?
He was already on the path. So he was there buying art for the museum, which didn't yet exist, but was already conceived. So he was there actively working on Mona with core members of the Mona team.
And when he told you about Mona, how did you process it?
Well, I assumed it wasn't going to be good. Because, I mean, imagine all of the kind of like rich guys who are opening a museum. It just sounds like a recipe for disaster. It just sounds bad.
When did that?
You're like, oh, wow, rich money guy opening a museum. Great.
When did that change?
Well, I saw the plans, and I was suspicious of a lot of things in the plans. And I remember railing against one of the walkways. And, I was very confident about my own taste, which was super rude. And I definitely underestimated him. And
but he didn't care.
I kind of, to be honest, really up until the end, I just still assumed it wasn't, that I was going to be embarrassed. until I, really got here and saw things going in, and I'm like, okay, I might actually be able to stand by this and be really proud.
So he was the one, and is the one.
Well, he would have been the one even if he had bad taste in art, but he did have a really bad Damien Hirst. But other than that, it was pretty good.
Whatever happened to that painting?
He sold it, thank God.
Happy for that?
Yeah.
Who bought it?
Who knows?
Who cares?
Who knows? I'm grateful to them. I'm deeply grateful.
Thank God we could bring the
Just
grateful.
full of gratitude. I'm experiencing profound gratitude.
Together you have a lovely daughter.
Yeah, we have a beautiful daughter. She's almost 10. She's 9.
And what are the dynamics like at home? We spoke about the sofa, the 30-minute quiet time on the sofa.
Yeah, they're just really cool. They're just adorable. And she is so her father's daughter. And we all definitely have dark humor. We're all a little inappropriate. But sometimes she is so her father's daughter. And I remember I walked in. God, what had just happened? I had just had a really profound experience where I connected with someone. And I was all inspired. And I had it had a meaningful experience. And there was something about it that was inherently good too. There's probably even had a do-gooder quality to the engagement. Anyway, I walk in all excited and I tell them what just happened. And they both kind of look up, and Sunday makes a face at me, and David's like, do we care? And he looks over at Sunday and he's like, do we care? And she's like, not really. And they're like, we really don't care. Which from them was a full profession of love, you know? It was just them messing with me in this beautiful way together. And I'm like, wow, I love my family.
You spoke about the similarities between you and your mother. Do you think you are your father's daughter?
I am my father's daughter in so many ways. And only recently, I think, post 40, have I really become my mother's daughter.
Right. As you were talking about your dad and David, I drew similarities. Are there similarities?
Oh my God, they're so alike. They're basically the same thing. It's just not in personality.
Their brain, I found them as you were describing them, their processes. It's almost, at one point I wanted to say, oh my God, she's married her father.
Oh no, I was dead set on marrying my dad. I 100% wanted to marry my father.
Why?
Because he was great. He's fantastic. He's the epic man of my life. So I wanted someone like him. Why not?
I mean, the general consensus is
people have hang-ups about that, but I don't.
I agree. The general consensus is that some women don't like to be told they've married their father, but the reality is a lot of them do.
Well, if you had a good one, why look any further? You found what, it works, right? I've got a type. I need a brilliant man who's a mathematician, who's got thick glasses and silver hair and is complete nonconformist, is eccentric, and pursues his dreams and passion. So I've had one from my childhood. He unfortunately died when I was 17, so I had one for the first, 17 years, and then I got another one.
What about women whose fathers aren't as great as yours?
Well, then I think you need to go look elsewhere. Get a different type. Marry my father, but not David.
You've chosen 24 Carrot as your social cause. This is something that you set up. Spoke about it briefly before. Tell us about this organisation.
Well, so in New Orleans, I had my art space there. I just showed up as a resident. I didn't intend to do anything there. And I lived there for some time just as a, resident young art, part of the art underground in New Orleans, doing a lot of performance art, having my friends, doing projects, and slowly started having, more formal exhibitions, ended up with this thing where I had all these houses on the block. Artists were taking them over and turning them into artworks. So to see the show, you'd kind of go from house to house. And all the kids from the neighborhood would hang out and get involved. They just loved it. All the gangsters did too. Like everyone hung. It was this culture. It was a scene. But the little kids were really, really actively involved. And some of the artists, I didn't start it. Some of the artists started giving them tasks or, giving them a lesson. There's an artist named Louise Riley, and she just started having them do some drawing. She was doing embroidery, and she's doing like live embroidery. She got them involved. They were so focused and so interested. Suddenly there's 12 kids all paying attention. And I was really taken by that. So I started inviting more artists to do it and making that kind of a normal thing that happened 3 times a week. There'd be a class in any subject. And then Tora Lopez, this artist who's showing with me in the Gold Coast at Hada Museum, she's doing the Department of Complaints. She led a class, and she did cooking because she's a cook. She's a great cook. So she did cooking, and during that class, the kids, it came out that they didn't know what this bunch of carrots was that she was holding up. They actually did not recognize a bunch of carrots from the garden. And that was just so confronting. And then, we made some dishes, and a little girl said, "You can't eat that. That's a leaf. That's poisonous." It was a basil leaf.
Wow.
And I just realized, whoa, the connection to real food. They were having some things, but just the connection to basic food from the garden had been completely lost. It was a food desert. There's no grocery store within walking distance. There's just fast food. So I realized, we need to tend to that. And I had a crazy gardener at the time who is just mad and an artist. I just said I wanted to start a garden for the kids. Without even consulting me, he just filled the garden with radishes, like hundreds of radishes. And they grow so fast. So, days later, these kids are pulling out these radishes that they've never seen.
Isn't that clever? He's thinking of something immediate so these kids get a response to it, so they're not having to wait a couple of weeks for beans to grow.
Yeah, and something colorful.
Yeah.
So they're like, what? Whoa, what? Pulling them out, just having a full experience. So then we did cherry tomatoes and peas and the things that taste good, and huge hit. At the same time, there was a global financial crisis, and I lost all my funding for the gallery. And we ended up doing this exhibit where we grew all of the food that we were serving and made bread every week with a sourdough starter that had been like multi-generational from the artist. And the kids played on this playground equipment and ground the flour that we used. And so the costs of this, it was all found objects turned into functional art to produce food, like the merry-go-round grinder, and the bread oven was a sculpture. It was all art, all found objects, and we ended up having this bountiful meal every weekend. And that was so great. So that became the basis of 24 Carrot, where it's like, well, let's do this. Let's grow food, cook it, eat it, and celebrate, and have a whole kind of lifestyle around the food together. And let's do it in the communities that are food deserts, where kids they don't have access to this kind of food.
So how does this 24 Carrot gold experience exist in Tasmania?
So in Tasmania, so in New Orleans, I just do it in the community. We have it in the community still in New Orleans at our school, which is called Material Institute. And that's open to anyone at all times. And then here in Tasmania, I decided that the best way to get the most exposure for the most children was to put it in the schools. And because it transcends kind of politics, and I think it's something everyone can agree on. We want children to be healthy. We want to have a beautiful food culture in Tasmania. So we've been able to put it in 25 schools and in a couple of communities as well. And it's just amazing. Kids learn so fast. They just take ownership. You watch them, they're incredible.
This August, you're bringing your infamous space, the Ladies' Lounge, first time ever leaving Tasmania, to the Bleach Festival on the Gold Coast, where I'll also be presenting one of these shows live with Alex Perry. Tell us about your Ladies' Lounge experience.
Well, the Ladies' Lounge really has been an adventure. It's a multifaceted installation work. There are so many layers to it. There's still layers that haven't been really explored or activated. I'll just say that. But at its simplest, it's a glamorous space where women can come and gather without men.
Why have you set it up without men?
Well, because, I feel bad. I'm not going to say it right now. In a different situation, I might tell you.
Okay, let's get ourselves in a different situation. It's the Ladies' Lounge is saying something. What is it saying?
Well, I think men have the experience of being rejected, and I think that's very important. So that moment for them, I think, is important. Men rule the world, and they're used to having access to everything and really being in a powerful and dominant position. They enjoy that without even knowing it. And I'm not even saying it's their fault. It's just woven into our society. So and women, we're part of it too. We all subconsciously perpetuate these systems of power.
It's interesting because at my school, so many mothers I hear, boys will be boys. And the father of 2 sons, I am just furious at that. How's that going for you? How's your 30% less in the pay packet? Boys will be boys.
Yeah.
Statement. So it is that.
Well, that's it. Women still aren't being paid the same, and they're certainly not valued for their leadership in the same way. You look at who rules the world, and it's all men still.
So is by rejecting men or not allowing them in the space, is the belief, the hope, the something that they will see this rejection and turn it around and do what you do with your adversaries?
Well, I'm not even really asking for that. I think it's enough to just have the moment of reflection. So it's a moment of reflection. Men come, they're told they can't come in, they're confused for a moment. Everyone's confused. What do you mean I can't go? Why? Am I not dressed properly? What's going on? Wait, I can't come in because I'm a man? Wow. So they have a moment. Most men take it really well. And I think a lot of men even kind of like it, like, oh, okay, well, that's new. And why not? Women deserve it. And so most men are supportive. Some men get very offended. But I think regardless of what the reaction is, that moment of reflection is important. And that's a key element of the artwork. Then there's the reality that when women are alone and men are not in the room, something very special happens. So, wow, the energy shifts. And I only discovered that later in life. A lot of women have always known that. For whatever reason, I'm very pro-men and really into men. I always spend time with them. When I finally started spending time exclusively in the company of women, I just couldn't believe it. It's really good. There's this whole other thing that happens that's magical. So I decided I really wanted to provide a space for that. So it's very innocent in that way. In that way, it's just genuinely about that. And, then it ended up having a whole kind of provocative life in culture and in the world as it made its way through the legal system, thanks to our benevolent suer, who has threatened to be a serial suer. So we might see him on the Gold Coast.
And that adds to the story and the development of the project, doesn't it?
It made it. he brought it to, I always say the project was Sleeping Beauty, and then this beautiful man came along and just kissed it with his lawsuit. You know, he just said, this is discrimination, this is illegal, and he took us to court, and it just provided this opportunity to really make the art.
How will the Ladies' Lounge live and breathe in the context of Bleach?
Well, there'll be a number of ways. You'll have the piece within the museum. So in that sense, it's a traditional artwork in a museum, right? And women will come and have that experience. Men will come. Men will be trying to come in as butlers. What we learned is that they're desperate to serve. So they're really desperate, and there will be a line of men, in my experience, and they'll go to great lengths to become butlers. So we are setting up a whole training facility for them where they can go through a process, because you have to be prepared. You can't just come in as a butler. I mean, some men naturally have it, and we're good at identifying that. So we'll, progress them quickly. Put them in the tuxedo, bam, you're in, white serviette over the arm, ready to go. But for most men, there's a process, and they really have to go through the training. And that involves, learning a script. So they're not to speak unless spoken to, and they have to learn, only a few things that they're to say. So, how may I be of service? Then we'll test their massaging skills if they're very good.
Now this is interesting.
Then they will say, may I offer you a foot massage? And may I pour you a glass of champagne? Then there's some great feeding activities. There's a number of activities. But as part of the training process, they go through a whole kind of ritual, and it's a minimalist sculpture with a series of ironing boards that are all original sculptures. And they'll go through and they'll learn how to do some ironing and some laundry folding before they get dressed.
You're putting them through their paces, aren't you?
They have to be prepared. It's a ritual. You don't just walk in, you need training.
The Ladies' Lounge will be on for the full duration of Bleach, the 31st of July to the 11th of August, open daily from 10 till 4.
That's right.
And it will be run, this iteration will also have a complaints department, won't it?
Now that is right. So my friend Tora Lopez is an artist. We've worked alongside each other for years, decades. And she did a lot of projects in New Orleans. We've collaborated a lot. And so she's making a new piece. She's a performance artist. And she's making a new piece called The Department of Complaints. And so men, and really anyone who needs to complain, there are some parameters for the complaints that are accepted. But for the most part, anyone with a complaint can come to the Department of Complaints and submit.
So everybody's welcome.
Everybody's welcome. It's super inclusive. Yeah. Men are invited, encouraged. So they will be permitted on the 3rd floor, and a few select men, they're really, really good, can get in as a butler.
Here at 3 Food Memories, we have an MFK Fisher Serve It Forth tradition where our previous guest presents you with a dish. British food critic and writer Tom Parker Bowles presents you with a Northern Thai larb. Very fragrant, very, very fragrant, with lots and lots of herbs, mint, Thai basil, coriander, all that stuff. And then he's going to put some minced chicken in it, which is every larb. And then you've got no chicken for you, so we can do what? We could do a fish larb?
Yeah.
We'll do a fish larb. And then we've got lots and lots of lime juice and fish sauce in that.
It sounds kind of like the Kelaguen in Guam.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm into it.
How do you feel about that?
I love it.
What would you like to serve our next guest?
Ooh, our next guest. Okay, I definitely want to do an invasive species. I want to do one that's not in that book, actually, that I discovered later in New Orleans. It's a giant snail. It's an elephant snail. It's invasive all over New Orleans. So now I don't know where this guest is, so she might need to fly. She could be hosted at Material Institute in New Orleans. And of course, New Orleans has a history with French culture as well. The French cuisine has infiltrated a bit. Louisiana belonged to the French for a while. So I think these snails, which are enormous, I think I would custom make a ceramic platter for her or him, and I will put those big shells in there, and it'll be a massive escargot plate with a beautiful butter garlic sauce.
Should we serve it with some sort of drink?
Yeah, we definitely need to serve it with a cocktail, and I want that one to be served up. And it won't be the hemlock cocktail, which is the last recipe in the book, which is called The End, and it's, the hemlock that killed Socrates. So no, that was about eliminating the problem, but I won't be so selective. That's humankind in general. So for her, maybe, you can't really go past the clitorius flower, right? Clitoria flower, which boring people want to call the butterfly pea flower, but it's the clitoria flower, and it's so magnificent the way it changes color if you add acid. It's a glorious magenta, or it's a glorious deep purple blue. It's an otherworldly color, and it's an invasive species as well.
I'm going to have so much fun describing this
And we'll
cocktail.
pair this with a mezcal, and then we're going to take the caterpillars that grow on the cabbage plants in our garden, and we're going to take those massive caterpillars and we're going to dry them and grind them up with some salt to make a sal de gusano, like the Mexicans put on the rim of a margarita. And it'll be like a clitoria, mezcal, and maybe something sweet, some lime juice to change the color of the clitoria flower. Yeah, touch of some kind of syrup, maybe not gorse, because that's here. We have to do a New Orleans New Orleans weed of some sort that's sweet. And then the sal de gusano made out of invasive white caterpillars.
I'm going to very much look forward to sharing that with our next guest.
Okay.
This is your opportunity to ask me a question. Now, I'm kind of coming to this with my own trepidation. What would you like to know?
Well, I'm really taken by your sheer socks. And I want to know, and they're sexy. They're very sexy, and they have a little bit of a feminine quality to them. So I want to know, you said I can ask you anything.
Anything.
Do you ever like to cross-dress?
I've never done it before. The one time I did wear drag, I remember my mother said I looked like my cousin Blah. I won't tell you whose cousin, because all my cousins listen to the show and
Okay.
I don't want to offend them or upset my mother.
Well, how do you know it wasn't a compliment? Maybe it wasn't offensive.
Oh, my cousin, because I think my cousin might find it, because I didn't make a very good looking
Your mother
woman.
just could have been saying, you look so beautiful, you look like
You
her.
know what? She probably could. Look at the way that you've turned that around and made
See,
it
our
positive.
beliefs can really hold us back.
So, let me think about that.
I feel like you might I
think
just
I
feel like those
might.
stockings are really fun. And what if I don't know.
I actually saw them on a model.
They're
and
beautiful.
I saw them on a model, and I love the way that men's fashion is embracing what is traditionally, the women's space. And similarly, like women's fashion are looking at men's stuff.
That's
so we
right.
are seeing a
Women are
cross.
wearing more tuxedos. I'm loving that.
Yeah, but it's an acceptance, and it's not a division, and it's not a confusion, is it? It's like, hey, I see you, you see me.
You wish.
Yeah, as you go. And I don't have, there's that wonderful American Indian, as in Indian, Asian Indian fellow, Alok. Have you come across Alok before? He dresses completely in women's clothing and presents as a man, and his story, and you see him for who he is, and so for me, I don't know, maybe I should try it.
I think you should.
Can you
I think
choose
the
me an
male
outfit?
form looks really great in women's fashion, often better, sometimes better. So I feel like you should try it. And if you do, and you decide you want to invoke that experience or spirit, you could come to the ladies' lounge, because that's welcome.
That's how I would. So if I identified or presented as a woman, I'd be invited into.
Absolutely. Anyone who truly identifies can come in, just not jocks who pretend.
Right.
Dudes who are like, I identify as a woman, I'm coming in. I'm like, no, you're not. No.
Let me think about that, because I would like to come in and just. I just have women everywhere in my life.
You could put on a beautiful emerald green dress, or gold, since it's the Gold Coast. I think we'll be wearing a lot of gold, a lot of black. So women are encouraged to dress in black, gold, or green, or white. just to kind of keep things looking sharp in there. And come.
I will. Think about that, actually. I'm going to process that. How do I do that? I have a final question for you. Oscar Wilde argued that life imitates art far more than art imitates life. You, however, in this interview, this chat, have demonstrated in your practice as well that life designs itself.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing, whether whatever way you want to say it. I'm pretty sure that art and life are the same thing. So that when life does what it does, when life does its thing, that's art. And my work as a so-called artist is to just create a frame, just to set a frame or an intention and say, we're doing this. And then it does what it does. And it's beautiful the way that it expresses itself. And I'm grateful to it. I'm deeply grateful, and I carry immense gratitude.
I think you're having a little poke at me with the grateful word.
Well, I feel guilty, but I finally got to confess. It's like, don't you feel grateful? Of course you have to say, yeah, I feel so grateful. No, fuck off.
I'm going to think next time I use that word. Philotimo is a Greek word too complex to translate to English. Basically, it's describing a love of distinction. You have shown me Philotimo today in spades. Kirsha, KAECHELE, big thanks for inviting me into your ecosystem. See you at Bleach, albeit, or maybe not, inside the Ladies' Lounge. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. I've loved you. You're so wonderful, and I love meeting you, and you're just beautiful. It's nice to be with you, and I can't wait to be with you in emerald green.
Thank you. That's it for this episode of 3 Food Memories.